Emergency call. Their son Daniel was just murdered at a nightclub. We have reason to believe the ambassador and his wife may be in danger too. We're sending police cruisers right now.
But, sir, the Njokus are not in the country. They're at a symposium in Abuja.
Find them then. Tell them to get somewhere secure. Please, do whatever you can do. Then call me back at this number. I'm Detective Cross.
I'll do what I can, sir. I will call you back, Detective Cross.
I hung up, feeling a little helpless. How was I supposed to stop a murder that could happen 6,000 miles away? Chapter 22. I want to talk to the witnesses first, as many of them as I can. No one goes home. The Bubble Lounge had been a lively place, but by the time I got there it was a wrecking yard. There were overturned tables, smashed and scattered chairs, broken shards of glass everywhere. Body teams were working both floors. We had 6 GSW, 1 broken neck and 1 suffocation. EMTs were still busily triaging the wounded. Young people were moaning and crying, and everyone I passed looked dazed, even the police officers. Members of Daniel Njoku's party were being held in the coat check area. I found them sitting close together on sofas, huddled. One girl, wearing a tiny black dress with a man's blazer over her shoulders, had blood smeared all over her neck and cheek. I knelt down next to her. I'm Detective Cross. I'm here to help. What's your name? Karavi, she said. She had beautiful long hair and scared dark eyes, and I thought she might be East Indian. She looked to be early 20s at most. Karavi, did you get a look at the people who did this? Just one man, she whimpered to me. He was huge. Excuse me, sir, one of the others interrupted. But we need to speak with our lawyers before we say anything to police. The speaker had an air of privilege about him. These 20-somethings spent their Saturday nights in private boxes at a private club. You can talk to me, I said to the girl. Nonetheless, sir. Or, I interrupted, we can do this later tonight and tomorrow, after I'm done here with all the others. It's all right, Freddie, Karavi said, waving off the boy. I want to help if I possibly can. Daniel is dead. We sat off to the side for a little privacy, and Karavi told me she was a grad student in cell biology at Georgetown. Both her parents were in the diplomatic corps, which was how she knew Daniel Njoku. They had been best friends, but were never a couple. Daniel's girlfriend, Bari Niederman, had been shot tonight too, but she was alive. Karavi described the gunman as a lone black man, maybe 6'6", at least that tall, wearing dark street clothes. And he just looked strong, she said. He had huge, muscular arms. Everything about him was powerful. How about his voice? Did he speak to anyone before he started to shoot? Karavi nodded. I heard him say something like, I have an invitation, just before he... She trailed off, not able to finish the thought. What kind of accent? I asked. American? Something else? I was pushing because I knew I'd never get a better, truer account than right now. He wasn't from here, she said. Not American, I'm certain of that. Nigerian? Did he sound like Daniel? Maybe. Her jaw clenched as she fought back the tears. It's hard to think straight. I'm sorry. Anyone else here Nigerian? I turned back toward the others. I need someone with a Nigerian accent. One of the boys spoke up.
I'm sorry, officer, but there's no such thing.
He had a Jimi Hendrix fro and an open tuxedo shirt showing off his skinny chest and jewelry.
I speak Yoruban, for instance. There is also Igbo and Hausa, and dozens of other languages. I'm not sure it's appropriate for you to suggest.
That's it. Karavi put a shaking hand on my arm. I noticed a few of the others in the party were nodding too. That's how the killer sounded. Just like him. Chapter 23. I was still at the nightclub murder scene around 2 in the morning, conducting interviews that had begun to blend one into another, when the cell in my trousers pocket rang. I figured it might be the Nigerian embassy and answered it right away. Alex Cross, Metro, I said. Dad? Damon's voice on my cell shocked me a little. At 2 a.m, why wouldn't it? What was up now? Day, what's going on? I asked my 14-year-old, who was away at school in Massachusetts. Nothing really, Damon said. I think my tone had taken him off guard. I mean, I've been trying to call you all day. I've got some good news. I was relieved, but my pulse was still racing. Okay, I need some good news. But what are you doing up so late? I had to stay up, to catch you. I called home, talked to Nana. I didn't want to call you on your cell. I took a slow breath and walked over to the hall by the bathrooms, away from the crime scene techs. No matter the time, it was always good to hear Damon's voice. I missed our talks, the boxing lessons I gave him, watching his basketball games. What's your news? Let me hear it. Nana already knows, but I wanted to tell you myself. I made the varsity, as a freshman. That's pretty good, right? Oh, and I got A's on my midterms. Listen to you. Oh, and I got A's. Nice one too, Damon. I guess you're doing pretty good up there, I said, and suddenly I found myself smiling. It was weird to be having this conversation under neon lights in a hallway that smelled of liquor and death, but it was still great news. Cushing Academy's sports and academic programs had been a real draw for Damon. I knew how hard he'd been working to do well at both. Sir? A uniform leaned her head into the hallway. 911 dispatch for you? Listen, Damon, can I call you later? Like in daylight, maybe? He laughed. Sure, Dad. This is a big one, isn't it? Your case at that club? I saw you online. It is a big one, I admitted. But it's still great to hear your voice. Any time. Get some sleep. Yeah, I will. You get some sleep, too. I hung up, feeling guilty. If this is what work meant, 2 a.m. conversations with my son, then I better make the work count. Dispatch relayed the call over to me, and I got the same woman from the Nigerian embassy as before. This time, though, her voice was thick with emotion.
Detective, I'm sorry to tell you, but Ambassador and Mrs. Njoko were killed tonight. We're quite in shock.
I didn't feel shocked. I felt sick. When did it happen? I asked her.
We're not entirely sure. Within the past few hours, I believe.
And within minutes of their son's murder? Had that been the plan all along? And whose plan? To what end? What was going on here? I slid down against the wall until I rested on my haunches. Another family dead. And this time, the murder had crossed 2 continents, 2 completely different worlds. At least I thought so at the time. Chapter 24. The big heat was on all of us now. It took me all of the next day to locate the CIA's Eric Dana again, and then I found him only because he showed up at the Daily Building. I caught Dana coming out of Chief Davies's office, and I saw the boss sitting inside before the door closed again. He wasn't smiling, and he didn't look up at me, though I was pretty sure he knew I was there. I walked up to Dana. Where have you been all day? I called at least half a dozen times. I need your help on this case. What's the problem? The CIA man didn't even break stride. Talk to your CO. Metro's out of this. Chantilly was a disaster from our point of view. Our division head, Stephen Millard, is involved at this point. Millard. I'd heard that name from my buddy, Al Tunney. I caught up with Dana at the elevator and elbowed my way through the closing door. Where is the killer? I asked him. What do you know about him? We believe he's left the country. We'll let you know if he heads this way again, the CIA man said, and he actually looked at me for the first time. Stick to your own crime scenes, Cross. Do your job, I'll do mine. Is that advice or a threat? I asked Dana. As long as you're working in D.C., it's advice. I have no control or influence over you here. His superior attitude was no surprise, and it didn't steam so much as focus me. I reached over and flipped the red toggle in the elevator. We jerked to a stop, and a warning bell went off. "Where did he go, Dana?" I shouted. "Tell me where the hell he is. What's the matter with you? This isn't how the game is played." When Dana reached for the switch, I grabbed his arm and held it. "Where did he go?" I asked again. "This isn't a game to me." Dana looked at me with hard eyes. He said very evenly, "Let go of my arm, Cross. Get your hand the hell off me. He went back to Nigeria. The killer is out of your jurisdiction." I knew I'd taken this too far, and it made me realize how emotional I was about this case. Maybe even more than I knew. I let go, and he flipped the elevator back on without a word. We rode to the lobby in silence, and I watched the CIA prick leave the building. The only question now was whether or not I could get around him. Maybe if I hurried. I dialed my cell phone from right there in the lobby of the Daily Building. "Al Tunney," I heard a voice on the other end answer. "It's Alex Cross. I need a favor," I said. Tunney said, "No," and groaned. Then he asked, "What is it?" I told him, and he groaned again, and I really couldn't blame him. Chapter 25. "Alex, you're taking this too far," Bree said. "I know that. It's what I do. It's what I've always done." Late that night, Bree and I were taking a ride around town. I like to drive late at night when the traffic thins out, and 60, even 70, isn't a dangerous speed on most of these avenues. Once we got back to 5th Street, I was feeling better, but Bree was still wound up. She couldn't stop pacing up in the bedroom. I had never seen her like this, agitated and unsure of herself. "See, the thing is, I've always been the one on the other side of this particular argument, the one trying to do the convincing. I've never been the person sitting there not buying it. You're going over the top here, Alex. This latest plan of yours, chase the killer back in Africa? Even under the circumstances, I don't even know what to call it." I started to speak, but she went on. "And you know why I don't buy your arguments now, Alex? Because sometimes in your position, I'd lie. I don't know how many times I've told my family there was nothing to worry about, or how safe I was going to be when really I had no idea. You have no idea what you'll find in Africa." "You're right," I said, and not just to get her to stop pacing. "I won't try to sell you some bill of goods here, Bree, but I will tell you that I'm not going to do anything stupid over there." It was about 8 hours after my confrontation with Eric Dana and my subsequent conversation with Tunney. Tunney had gone as far as setting me up with a CIA officer stationed in Nigeria, just before he told me never to call him again. I had the frequent flyer miles, so that wasn't a problem. I had vacation time banked with the MPD. Now I just had to convince 2 of the strongest women I'd ever known that it made sense for me to do this. Bree tonight, Nana Mama tomorrow. The air, the tension between Bree and me was as thick as I'd ever felt it. "What exactly are you hoping to accomplish over there?" she finally asked me. "Ultimately, use Tunney's guy to set up some local cooperation, then steer the killer into custody if I can. I can get this guy, Bree. He's arrogant, thinks he can't be caught. That's his weakness. Kyle Craig was a lifer, several times over. It's no guarantee, Alex. That's if you catch him." I allowed myself a sheepish grin. And yet we keep doing our jobs anyway, don't we? We keep trying to catch these killers. I finally reached out and took her hand. Then I pulled her over to sit next to me on the bed. "I have to go, Bree. He's already killed more people in Washington than anyone I've seen. Eventually he'll come back and start up again." "And he killed your friend?" "Yes, he killed my friend. He killed Ellie Cox and her entire family." Finally, Bree shrugged. "So go. Go to Africa, Alex." And we hugged each other for a long time, and I was reminded again of why I loved her, and maybe why I was running away from her now. Chapter 26.
He met up with the White Devil in a wood-paneled cigar bar just off Pennsylvania Avenue. half a dozen blocks from the White House.